All right, so now I'm going to be speaking about the last section tab here that we haven't yet discussed in Class Notebook, the collaboration space. So the collaboration space is interesting in that at the outset, it provides students with full editing privileges over the pages that are contained within it. So what does that mean? Well, students will be able to type, they'll be able to input audio, video, anything that you as the teacher are capable of editing and inserting into the workspace here, the students are also capable of doing so. So it is interesting in that it provides the students with that interactivity that they might be lacking at home on their own devices. But obviously it does come with its own set of challenges as far as moderating all of that input that you're going to be getting and receiving from your students. So I thought I would just provide you with a few tips here for working through some of those issues. So first things first, you might decide that you want to start from a whole group format. So having the entire group, giving their input on a certain question. So as I mentioned before in previous videos, if you want to, as a class, brainstorm what makes a certain fractions task successful, and have students, input their own success criteria that you could then compile and put into a content library, rubric or set of success criteria for them to reference later. That would be a really cool thing to do, and it kind of mirrors an actual classroom environment. But the problem is, right, with 30 students, say if you have 30 or 20, whatever it is, all working on the same space, things can get a little bit cluttered. So you want to be able to track who's writing what, just so that you know who's participating and for their own involvement, but also that people are not taking advantage of the system and being inappropriate. So the way you can track who's writing on the page itself is very simple. You just have to go up here to the View tab where it says View, and this button right here where it's Show Author. So I'll just type a little bit right here, just gibberish, and you'll notice that the more I type, this little bracket is going to track what I'm writing and say who it is that is writing. So in this case, me. But you could also just segment it so that if they gave a few spaces between each answer, you could just very easily go through and see wherever it is that they're writing, who wrote it. So it's very nice in that way. And again, you can track people who are trying to be inappropriate at the outset, trying to take advantage of things. So that is a whole group format that you might want to embrace at the beginning. But if you find that, again, having the whole group format all the time is not going to work, you can also tighten things up and create groups. So that means that within these groups, only a certain set of students that you determine will be able to interact and edit that group. So type or put anything into that group. So it just kind of cleans things up and makes it, a little bit, more streamlined in terms of directing the discussion and who's going to be discussing to whom. So in order to create groups of specific students within the collaboration space, you're just going to go over to Class Notebook, right here, Class Notebook, and you're going to go over here to where it says Manage Notebooks. Okay, so I'm going to click on Manage Notebooks, and you'll come back to this screen, which we've seen before. So you'll notice that the lock collaboration space, if you so choose and you don't want to use the collaboration space, there is the option of locking it where students will not be able to get in. But you can also, work around that. I think it's important that they do have that interactive piece. So to make the groups, I'm just going to go over here and click on collaboration space permissions. So this will pop up here, a little loading screen. So you'll notice that my one group that I've already created for the whole class is in there, right? So I didn't mess around with permissions. The whole class is already in there. In my case, I only have one student, so he's in there. Everyone's in there. But if I want to, again, make this group, I'm going to click on Add a Section. So say I'm adding something for a math group. You can name the math group, and then you'll have a whole list of students. You can determine which 5 or 6 students you want in that math group, so that at the end of it, again, math group 1, I'll select my student, right? I can create that. That will be the math group. Only they will be able to access this. The thing with the groups is you can give read-only access to the students in the class even if they're not in the group. So it's kind of interesting. So the groups will only be able to edit and type and respond to each other in their own groups. But if you feel like they would benefit from reading other discussions, you can give them read-only access right here simply by clicking this little check mark too. And that will give read-only access to this group here, right? So you want to make sure when you're making, 5, 6, 7 groups, however many, that if you want all of them to be read-only, you got to check it every time. So there's math group 1. I select my student, I create. It'll load here and save. And you'll notice my math group is here. So math group 1. Then if I want to make another group, again, add section. It'll just keep going. So as many as you want, you can create. I'll close that. And if I go back to my notebook in the open notebook thing here, there's my notebook, my welcome message. And you'll notice in my collaboration space that math group has now appeared. So this math group, right, they can now create pages. You might create a response for them. You might just dictate in your lesson, create a page that responds to this question. And each group can go in, create their page, create their responses, right? Here's a page. You can tell them how to title it. And then, again, you can write it. If you want to see who wrote it, view, just make sure that's enabled. So if you want to work with the whole group, you can do that with the collaboration space. Just set up a section. If you want to get more specific with groups, then you can always go into Class Notebook, Manage Notebooks, and mess around with the permissions there. That's how you might best use the collaboration space in your virtual classroom.